Hey, how's it going, and welcome to another video. Alright, so I have been playing a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel recently, and I'm kind of surprised by how much fun I'm actually having because I'm one of those Yu-Gi-Oh! Boomers who's really nostalgic for, you know, the original series and GX, and past that point I'm kind of like iffy on it. I'm not quite the stereotype of the guy who's like, I don't understand these synchros and Xyz, and what the hell is a pendulum? I know how to play the game, it's more so just like, you know, there's so much special summoning and turns take so long. It's just very, very different from the game that I kind of grew up with, but I do know how to play, just, you know, not very well. But I decided to give Master Duel a try, and I was surprised by how much fun I actually ended up having. And since I'm in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Mood, I wanted to talk about some of my favorite archetypes from across the game. Alright, so to start with, we have a certified hood classic, the Ancient Gears. Dude, I remember watching the first episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX and just thinking that the Ancient Gears are the coolest monsters ever. Just these giant, rusted automatons full of, as you would expect, gears. They all had just this very warlike appearance. A lot of them have these helmets, you know, Ancient Gear Golem especially has like a fucking Centurion's helmet on. And they're loaded up with guns and spears, and they have robo-dogs. Just such a cool aesthetic overall, and the longer the archetype goes on, this is a pretty common trend when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh!, but the longer it went on, the more insane the monsters got. And they especially started getting a lot of dragons. Like, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX was fucking fixated on giving archetypes dragons. Ancient Gear Gadgetron Dragon. Oh, it's such an awesome name. Or you have like Ancient Gear Hydra, just these fucking crazy scrap abominations that look so cool. Or my dude, the Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon. Just such cool, over-the-top, crazy fucking designs. And it also helps that I really, really like the Ancient Gear playstyle of essentially just make a giant fucker and ram him into stuff. Since most of the Ancient Gears, they have this gimmick where they, like, your opponent can't activate spells and traps or that, or they're just not affected by them. So you could just make these big boys and fucking charge at them, and the Ancient Gear, like, playstyle when it comes to their spells and stuff is the most psycho shit you've ever seen in your life. Because they just spend the entire game blowing up their own bases and shit. Like, usually the strategy is to put up Gear Town and then blow it up with your Ancient Gear Catapult. And that lets you special summon monsters out of your deck, so things are just getting constantly exploded, and then dudes show up, and then they fuse into bigger dudes. Ancient Gears also have the most cracked up lineup of fusion monsters. They're so fucking cool. Like, Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem, that's a cool dude. Just this big fucking Centaur Ancient Gear, or Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. Dude, why do people bother having sex when they can just power bond out Chaos Ancient Gear Giant? I have this 9,000 attack fat ass fucking ram himself and do piercing damage and attack every enemy, and spells can't be activated. Or he's unaffected by spells, rather. But yeah, Ancient Gears are awesome, and I think they really especially appeal to my dumb idiot brain where I don't want to spend all this time doing all these Xyz summons and searching out monsters and doing all this dumb stuff. I just want to make a big fucker and wipe out all life in the universe, including all of my own cards. So yeah, Ancient Gears cracked as hell, definitely one of my favorites of all time. Alright, so next up we have another boomer archetype, and it's the Relinquished / Thousand Eyes archetype. I actually have a very strange story about the Thousand Eyes Restrict especially. And to this day, it's still something that kind of confuses the hell out of me. So one day, me and my mom went to, I forget what it was exactly, it was like a Walgreens or a convenience store or something, but either way, the point is they had Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards there. So I was looking at all the cards they had, and I noticed there was a pack just sitting there on the shelf. You know, it wasn't in a blister or anything, so I picked it up, and it was a busted open pack. So I sneakily decided to just kind of sift through the cards and see what was in there, and fucking Thousand Eyes Restrict was in it. Okay, so I decided to dig out my old Yu-Gi-Oh! Portfolio thing. I still own this Thousand Eyes Restrict, and yeah, it is a Pharaoh's Servant Thousand Eyes. It's not a first edition or anything, but yeah, so that's always been just one of the strange, great mysteries of my life, is that somebody went to this convenience store, decided to bust open a couple of the packs, and just did not take the Thousand Eyes Restrict. Actually, I'm lying. Somebody did take it. It was me. But yeah, that little tangent aside, dude, I've always found Thousand Eyes and Relinquished to just be the coolest, creepiest dudes. I've always liked the contrast of how Pegasus was playing goofy-ass cartoons, and then also horrors beyond your imagination. And just their gimmick of being able to fucking yoink other monsters and attach them to their own being, I thought was so cool and so creepy. And I'm really glad they ended up getting support. It was obviously a couple of years ago, but getting shit like a dedicated fusion spell, a Link monster, the new Millennium Eyes Restrict, all those cards to just help out with that playstyle. It's such a fun deck being able to just do that yonky splunky on people's cards, even if it is pretty inconsistent, because if you go first with that deck, it's like, oh dear. But if you go second, baby, it's a fun time. So this next one is a fairly recent addition to my favorite archetype list. I've been playing a lot of old school Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, we've been doing a progression series where we go through all the old packs in order, and it's been a lot of fun. I've been playing it with like Flare and Medi and some others. But the deck that I've been playing has actually been Gravekeepers. It's crazy just how good and kind of ahead of their time Gravekeepers were just as an archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm not as familiar with the newer Gravekeepers because I mostly played these guys in old formats. But these guys are nasty. You know, Necro Valley just completely shutting down the graveyards is such a big deal. Oh, would you like to flip Magician of Faith? I'm sure you would. Monster Reborn? No, thank you. Banishing? Nuh-uh. Just all this stuff that is so oppressive, and the Gravekeeper monsters are so good. You know, you have Gravekeeper Spy, who, if you have Necro Valley out, he's a 2500 defense fat ass who special summons another one when he's flipped. And then you have Guard who bounces, Assailant changes battle positions, Spear Soldier does piercing damage. Like, these guys were really, really good for the time they came out. And I think just their aesthetic overall, especially for being essentially the first archetype, I don't know if you want to count them or Toons as the very first, but just the Egyptian aesthetic fits in so perfectly with the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. And it really just makes me stop and think like, yeah, man, this is Yu-Gi-Oh! As God intended. And since I just mentioned Toons, the next archetype is Toons. Kind of similar to Relinquished, they just made such a strong impression on me. It was so cool, the idea of this antagonist having these fucking cartoons that he fights with. You know, he would just steal the good guys' monsters and turn them into Blue Eyes Toon Dragon or Toon Summon Skull or whatever. And it was just so much fun. And that's the thing about Toons that I think I like so much is it's just fun. In Duel Masters, at least, Toons is probably the deck I've gotten the most mileage out of, since those fuckers can be kind of hard to deal with. You know, Toon Kingdom, your other Toons are not affected by card effects, or I think it's they can't be targeted. And if a Toon would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can just banish a card from your deck instead. Which is like, alright, do something about it, bitch. I've had a lot of games where there's literally just not a lot they can do because they can't target and they can't destroy them by battle. Plus, them being able to attack directly is just so nasty. And Toons have so many good cards that I didn't even really know existed until I started to build my Toon deck. Y'all ever seen fucking Toon Page Flip? It basically lets you special summon one of any 3 Toons that you pick. And then there's Toon Bookmark, which is just a searcher for your Toon world. And also, when it's in the graveyard, it can stop Toon World from getting destroyed. Because that's always been the biggest problem with Toons is, what happens if your Toon Kingdom gets fucked? You lose, essentially, is what happens. But yeah, they're just super fun, super consistent. They're pretty hard to deal with, and I've always loved the aesthetic of the Toons. Taking these iconic monsters and making them look all funny. Toon Dark Magician and Red Eyes are so cute, and like Toon Black Luster Soldier. I like the smug face he has. Since I guess I'm just exposing myself as a nostalgia whore, next up we have Blue Eyes White Dragon. I think every person who grew up with the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series is weirdly into either Blue Eyes or Dark Magician or Red Eyes without fail. And at least for me, I've always been a Blue Eyes kind of guy. Just the Blue Eyes White Dragon had such an allure as being this semi-mythical card that there are only, what, 4 of in the whole world, and then kind of destroyed one of them. Blue Eyes is just so cool, and of course it being a Duel Monsters era staple, extremely popular card, it's gotten nothing but support over especially the past couple years. And even though I obviously love the original Blue Eyes, the actual deck, you know, playing kind of modern Blue Eyes, it doesn't super click with me. It's kind of similar to Ancient Gears, where you just summon this big fucking idiot that usually being Chaos Max Dragon, and you're special summoning out Blue Eyes alternative White Dragon. So even though some of them are cool, I'm not really crazy about the designs of a lot of the like newer Blue Eyes monsters. Like, have y'all ever seen fucking Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon? What's wrong with his feet? He's got like an axe for a tail. But yeah, obligatory, yeah, Blue Eyes White Dragon. They don't make them like that anymore. All right, for my next pick, I have Ojamas. Dude, Ojamas are fucking funny. I remember back when I played Duel Links, I would mostly play the Ojamas just because it was so funny being able to clog up their field and make it so they can't summon shit. Ojama King basically just locked people out of monsters. And then you had like fucking Ojama country swapping the attack and defense, and Ojamas are just such a strange fucking species. They're all just wearing these Speedos, and they have that whole weird association with arm dragons and XYZs because of Chaz. Just what a fucking bizarre bunch of goobers. Okay, so this next one is probably going to be the most confusing out of all of them, because, you know, so far there's been a lot of good old nostalgia bait kind of stuff, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Toons, Ancient Gears, stuff like that, but legitimately one of my favorite archetypes ever are Cloudians. Now you may ask, why Cloudians? Dog, I wish I could fucking tell you. I just think they're neat. I don't know what it is. I guess if I had to describe it, I just think that they're cute. Cloudian Cure Stratus especially is like one of my favorite monsters ever. And then you have, you know, Cloudian Altus, who's just this big fat fuck. And I think their gimmick is kind of fun, how they can't be destroyed by battle, and they accumulate these fog counters that let you do different stuff. Kira Stratus lets you pop monsters. Altus, I think he discards cards. Acid Cloud destroys spells and traps. They all do a different thing, and good god, they're bad. I mean, this archetype is fucking horrendous. They're one of those GX archetypes that are like, yeah, they're okay, whatever. Not really doing much to dominate the competitive landscape, but they've just never gotten support of any kind. Like, legitimately, I don't think they got a card in the entirety of 2010, of the 2010s as a decade. Actually, no, I'm lying. I'm spreading misinformation. They got a new card in 2019. Dude, I want to know what fucking modern Cloudian decks look like. I'm gonna go look into that once I'm done recording. But yeah, they've just sat for fucking 15 years. And it's one of those things where even if you do give them support, like it's one of those archetypes where it's just so fucked at this point, you would have to basically just reinvent the wheel on all of it. They're just so slow and their effects are just not that powerful. And their boss monster, Eye of the Typhoon, has nothing to do with anything. His effect is when he attacks, he changes the battle positions of the other monsters. Which is like, okay, but what the has nothing to do with the whole rest of them. See, I'm just holding out hope for the eventual retrain of the entire fucking archetype of Cloudians, and then I'm taking over the competitive landscape with Cloudians. So speaking of GX, of course, another one of my all-time favorites are Cyber Dragons. And kind of similar to the Ancient Gears, I remember, you know, first watching Yu-Gi-Oh! GX and seeing the Cyber Dragons, and especially Cyber End Dragon, and just thinking like, holy fuck, it's like Blue Eyes White Dragon, or Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon rather, but he's a machine! Holy shit! You know, Cyber End Dragon was one of those cards that I would have fucking given up an arm and a leg to pull one of those. And I think I'm especially very nostalgic for Cyber Dragons because even though I kept up with Yu-Gi-Oh! In a sort of limited capacity throughout GX, Cyber End really did stand out as being one of the last cards that I remember being excited about the prospect of getting. Obviously, I was just a little kid, so the value of cards was sort of skewed in my brain. The actual competitive worth of it didn't really factor too much, but yeah, whereas the Ancient Gears are these rusty, big, clunkety fuckers, the Cyber Dragons are all super sleek and smooth and futuristic looking. I really like their kind of naming convention where they all have these German names. And similar to Ancient Gears as well, they just have the potential to be these big fuckers, you know? I like big fuckers. Cyber Dragons are currently the deck I'm trying to build in Master Duel, but I've reached that phase where the gems are starting to run a little dry, so just trying to make do with what I can get. All right, down to our final two here. I should probably specify, I don't know if I said this, but this isn't necessarily in any order. There's definitely some on here I like more than others, but this isn't like a number 10 to number 1 kind of deal. But next we have, I think this is the smallest archetype on the list. This is one of the smallest archetypes in general. It's very, very specific. It's kind of just one monster, really. But it is Silent Magician. I've always thought Silent Magician was so fucking cool, dude. I always really like the various level monsters, especially Horus and Silent Magician. Just the concept of taking this little tiny guy and making him stronger and stronger is such an appealing concept. And I really love the designs of Silent Magician. Like, Silent Magician level 4 is so cute. She's just got this big ass wand, and she's so tiny, and then she becomes level 8, and level 8 I think just has such a cool, elegant, low-key kind of design. I really like how powerful she feels while also being very kind of restrained, you know? It's not like a lot of other monsters that feel very dynamic where they're like, oh, I'm a big powerful wizard or whatever. I would say I probably even like Silent Magician more than Dark Magician. And finally, we have this. I would say this is probably honestly my favorite archetype. Obviously, I love all of these dearly, but I don't know, something about these guys just really does it for me. They're also the most recently created members of this list, and it is Cubics. Dude, I fucking love Cubics. You know, I kind of immediately fell in love with them when I watched the Dark Side of Dimensions movie, because they were just so weird and kind of creepy. You know, I like weird shit, and the Cubics are definitely very weird. They're this really interesting blend of a lot of Hindu and Buddhist concepts and kind of designs for the monsters. Yugioh is just this sphere with wings and eyes, and if a monster attacks him, he can't be destroyed by battle. And if he does get attacked, you put a cubic counter on the monster, and they can't attack, and their effect gets negated, which, as you can imagine, is fucking annoying. But yeah, they just have such a strange collection of monsters, like Vulcan Dragny, the Cubic King. What the fuck is this guy? Buster Gundeal is this, I don't even know what you would call this thing. He's like a big bunch of towers or something. Indiora Doomvolt. Like, just this collection of really weird, out there, alien looking dudes. But where the archetype gets crazy and why it's probably my favorite to play is Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord. So his gimmick is that you can special summon him. Actually, you can only special summon him by revealing 3 other cubic cards that you have. And his effect is that if he destroys a monster, he can attack again. He's unaffected by monsters' effects if their original attack is 3,000 or less. And during the end phase, both players take 3,000 damage. So basically the idea is you want to summon him and run over your opponent's monsters, try to damage them as much as possible, and then during the end phase, you both fucking blow up. It's really dumb. And they have this 1-card Cubic Wave, which doubles the attack of a cubic and halves the attack of another monster. So a lot of the time you'll summon Crimson Nova, do Cubic Wave, and Crimson Nova is a big fat bitch, and then he'll attack something and deal like fucking 4,000 damage, and then he'll attack again and do like 2,500 damage. And then you'll end the turn and his effect activates and he does 3,000 damage to both of you. It's so much fun. And since cubics aren't exactly the most popular thing ever, it's not like Blue Eyes or any, you know, meta deck or whatever. A lot of people probably just have no idea what he does. So I imagine, you know, I do my thing where I just fuck up their monsters and they have however much life points left. They have 3,000, for example. I end my turn and then the fucking duel just ends because Crimson Nova kills them. It's also pretty common to just end up in draws because of it. You know, if you both have 3,000 or less and his effect activates, that's a fucking draw. So yeah, cubics, really love them. I love the overall just aesthetic they have. Their playstyle, in case you can't tell, I really like the overall game plan of make big fucker and attack. And man, they're just so much fun. I love my cubics. And I'm really glad that I'm able to play all of these guys with, you know, varying levels of success. Obviously, I'm not winning any national tournaments, but I think it's pretty cool that I can go in with, you know, Toons who are literally 20 years old and get a couple of wins in. I think that's really sort of a fun thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! It's just being able to take these cards from, you know, your literal childhood and play them and actually get some results. But yeah, that has been the video. Thank you all so much for watching, and especially a big thank you to my channel members. Everybody in the comments, tell me about your favorite archetypes in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are you also still mentally 9 years old and thinking about how cool the Blue Eyes White Dragon is? I know I am. But yeah, that has been the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.